All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. It's not really a 49er video. I guess it could be considered a Niner video. It's more of a cut-down video as the NFL rosters try to pare themselves from 90 down to 53, getting ready for week one. Of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. Go get some brisket. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. And this video brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove. Call my friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. All right. I'm probably going to do this video a couple times in the next couple days. Tuesday, all NFL teams must trim their 90-man training camp rosters to 53 for week one. This is by August the 27th. You have to be complying by 1 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday, that being tomorrow, August the 27th. We've already seen some teams announce some cuts, and there's also been a lot of speculation on some other cuts. So let's go through a few names that I think, the 49ers are stacked, right? They're a loaded roster. They're one of the deepest teams in pro football. They've got a quarter of the top 30 players in the league on their roster. But like all teams, every team has weaknesses, and you're always looking to get as many good players as possible. We heard that yesterday from Kyle Shanahan when he was talking about the roster. One, he didn't want to talk about any players. Why? Because this is that time of the year where you just don't talk about any players at all. You don't want to give away your hand. You want to take as many of the best players in the league that are going to be cut and get them on your team. There may be a guy cut somewhere else that can make your team. All right, let's go through some of the guys that either have been cut or are rumored to be cut and who might fit the Niners and where are they deep, where are they thin. All right, well, the Niners are pretty deep in a lot of spots. They're deep at quarterback. They're deep at running back. They're pretty deep on the offensive line, despite the fact that a lot of us don't love a lot of the prospects. They added 3 young offensive linemen this year that they'd like to keep, guys like Nugent and Pooney and Kingston. So they're pretty deep on the offensive line. They're pretty deep at linebacker, despite the fact that Dre Greenlaw is going to be out for most of the year. And they're really deep at corner. They have a lot of corners. Where are they thin? Well, they could definitely use a really good safety if there was one out there. You can always use a dynamic player at linebacker. I think they're really thin at defensive end. They could definitely take a look at the right player if the right player got cut at offensive tackle, at tight end, or a certain kind of dynamic receiver, I think they would be interested in as well. All right, so let's go through what's already been done so far. Now, most teams haven't made their cuts, but some have. Some teams like Tampa and a few teams, Cincinnati, announced some cuts early on. Other teams will wait until literally the 1 p.m. deadline, and they won't even put out a formal announcement until, after the league mandates that you do. But a lot of teams are so cloak and dagger and play their cards so close to the vest, they don't even want to announce their guys and who they're cutting until the 11th hour. Some, competitive back and forth between general managers. All right, let's go through some of the guys, the interesting names that have already been cut. Aaron Casey, the linebacker who played at Indiana, very productive linebackers, 109 tackles last year. He had like 8 different games where he had over 8 tackles. Aaron Casey's a hyperactive, really productive rookie linebacker who can flat out, be outstanding against the run. Cincinnati cut him. Cincinnati's got a lot of good linebackers, I guess, and they cut Aaron Casey. He's really intriguing. Matt Landers is been in a few spots now. He played at Arkansas. He's a 6'6", 217-pound wide receiver who runs in the 4.3s. He's now in Cleveland's camp, and Cleveland cut him loose. Landers is big and fast. I mean, if you really like a big, fast wide receiver who can get down the field, Matt Landers is for you. The Niners are going to be looking at any and every possible available defensive end that gets cut. They are going to be looking at and thinking about and discussing internally because this is where they're thin. Randy Gregory, who was with the Niners last year, was cut by Tampa. Now, Gregory may retire and may not want to play anymore. And there's some injuries there, there's some off-field things there, but that's worth investigating. The other name that's interesting, The Saints cut Trajan Jeffcoat from Arkansas, had a really good career in the SEC. There's a lot of talk that the Saints are going to cut Peyton Turner, who was a first-round draft choice, and Isaiah Foskey. So this is where New Orleans is deep, and this is where the Niners are thin. The Niners need another defensive end. Isaiah Foskey, who went to Notre Dame and played at De La Salle, would be ideal, absolutely ideal. And he might get cut, and he may fall into their lap. So a name to remember at the cutdown. Notre Dame linebacker Isaiah Foskey, who the Saints may cut because they've got Granderson, they've got a ton of guys on that defensive front. They're just really, really stacked up front, and their fifth and sixth defensive ends are probably good enough to make the Niners as the Niners' fifth defensive end. So look for those guys. Denver last year, a couple years ago, I told you I really loved this offensive lineman in the draft who went undrafted, Alec Palczewski, I believe is how they pronounce it. He played at Illinois, really good prospect, even though he's an undrafted player, he made Denver's lineup. And to me, I saw real regression this summer from Jalen Moore. And I watched Palczewski in a couple games this summer. If Denver cuts Alex Palczewski, I would rather have Palczewski than Jalen Moore. He's more of a right tackle than a left tackle, but I think he's also got potential to start, and I just don't know that Jalen Moore really does. So that's a name that's out there to watch. The Niners they already have an incredibly deep cast at wide receiver, but there's three really interesting names at wide receiver at the cutdown that all could be cut. One is Kadarius Toney from Kansas City. The other is Tutu Atwell from the Rams. Atwell's just a total burner. And Kyle Shanahan, I think, would love, if you look at this offseason, I think the 49ers would love to add some speed. And they have added speed. I mean, there's no doubt Jacob Cowing is essentially speed. But if you could find a Kadarius Toney, who's just so electric with the ball in his hands. And in Kyle's offense, I think Kadarius Toney would be totally a Pro Bowl caliber player. And then you have Tutu Atwell, who they're saying the Rams may cut or trade. Tutu Atwell is so dynamic as a runner that if he's out there, I mean, that is, in a lot of ways, what you're looking for in a wide receiver, just somebody who's super dynamic. I would love to have Tutu Atwell. The third name is probably the most intriguing name at wide receiver, and that's a guy who is lit up in the Eagles camp this summer, who's best buddies with Brandon Ayuk, and that's Joseph Ngata. Ngata was the talk of the Eagles camp earlier this summer, and there's a lot of talk that the Eagles, who have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and just traded for Jahan Dotson and drafted Big Johnny Wilson out of Florida State. And I'll have other guys, Britton Covey, Paris Campbell, John Ross, Ainias Smith, Jacob Harris. They've got other receivers that they like in this camp. Joseph Ngata may get caught up in a numbers game. Now, Ngata's really intriguing. He went to Clemson. He's a NorCal guy. He was a 5-star high school recruit. Went to Folsom High School in Sacramento, and won the state title there at Folsom High. 5-star high school commit, goes to Clemson, 6'3", 217-pound wide receiver. Huge guy, big, physical, good speed, only 23, wasn't drafted out of Clemson, and he was the talk of the Eagles camp early on. 10 1/4-inch hands. He ran 4.54, 33.5-inch arms. In a lot of ways, this guy is very similar to Brandon Ayuk as a prospect. He has the same arm length as Ayuk. He's got bigger hands than Ayuk. He ran a better 40 time than Ayuk. This guy won the state title a couple times, I believe, at Folsom. So his brother played linebacker at UW and then transferred to Sac State. His other brother went to ASU and then transferred to UW. He does struggle a little bit against man-to-man coverage, but man, we're talking about NFL size, NFL length, very explosive, has kick returning ability. He's got really good hand-eye coordination. And as I said, he trains with Brandon Ayuk in the offseason. And if you want to, make Ayuk happy and Maybe you sign a guy like Ngata and put him on the practice squad. Maybe you sign a guy like Ngata and give him Conley's spot. I think he offers a little bit more than Conley, to be completely honest. So that's a name I'm looking for at the cut down. He hasn't been cut yet, but that's a name to look for. And two guys that I really think John Lynch should take a look at who are available, who were just cut last night. One is his former teammate with the Buccaneers is a defensive lineman named Brad Culpepper. Brad Culpepper's son, Judge Culpepper, is a 295-pound defensive tackle who's got some pass rush ability, who played at Toledo. He was an undrafted free agent, college free agent, who signed with the Buccaneers and got cut by the Bucs. The Bucs have a really good deep line with a lot of draft picks that they've invested in over the last few years. So Culpepper, the Niners have Evan Anderson there and as their fifth defensive tackle, and I like him. But Anderson's really raw. He doesn't offer that much as a pass rusher. Maybe you could get Evan Anderson on the practice squad and sign Judge Culpepper as the fifth defensive tackle. I like Judge Culpepper as a pass rusher and as a try-hard guy inside. The other guy that I really love, and I loved him on draft day, is Kalen DeLoach, the linebacker from Florida State. He's undersized. He's the modern day. He's like the Niners have their linebackers. Warner's undersized, and Flanagan Fowles was a college safety, and Curtis Robinson. All these guys are slightly, in that 220, 225 range. Jalen Graham, D. Winters. They're not 250, they're 220. Well, Kalen DeLoach is about 215, 217. He ran in the 4.4s. He's a burner linebacker. He would be an outstanding special team player. Him and Tatum Bethune and Renardo Green would give the Niners three of Florida State's most aggressive defenders from their defense from a year ago. That was really, really good. I love Tatum Bethune, and Bethune's a really good run defender, but he doesn't run like DeLoach. To me, Bethune is the run defender that is an awesome run defender that might get exploited against the pass. Well, guess what? DeLoach might be the opposite. He might be a little bit susceptible to the run, but man, what an elite mover, pass coverage guy, and special teamer. And to me, when you're looking for speed and impact ability on your team and you're trying to make your team faster at the cut down, adding a super fast special teamer linebacker who can cover and go sideline to sideline is a great way to add speed to your football team. So those are the names that I really like right now at the cut down. Joseph Ngata, Judge Culpepper, Kalen DeLoach, Alex Palczewski, Isaiah Foskey and Peyton Turner from New Orleans, Tutu Atwell, Kadarius Toney, wide receivers, Randy Gregory, Trajan Jeffcoat, Aaron Casey, Matt Landers. Just some of the guys that are out there right now that I think are really good football players. And just because you're cut doesn't mean you're not a really good football player. Just because it doesn't work out in the first stop doesn't mean you're not going to be a great player somewhere else. Marshawn Lynch was not good in Buffalo. Marshawn Lynch was very good in Seattle. And the league is littered with guys like that who weren't very good at the first stop and then became really good at their second or third stop. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.